Hey, this is Rock Leach with Social Fire, and today I'm going to go ahead and show you a video that, there's one thing called church hurt, but right here is some level of trauma from the church. I can't even believe all this happened, but you don't want to miss this video. Looking at this video, I do want to be very honest with you. This right here was quite triggering to me. And when it was sent to me and suggested, it was suggested that I watch this video first before I actually, because a lot of time when I do a reaction video, sometimes it's the first time I've saw the video, just so I can do it authentic. I can be authentic with the way that I respond to it. But I'm so glad that I watched this video actually a couple of days ago. This video right here did get me upset. It got me very upset, and I want to go ahead and let you look at it. One, I'm a pastor. This is what I was called to do, and I care about what God thinks about me. But listen, I'm just gonna let you watch the video. You got to see this. You got to see this.
I'm going to do a story time. I'm not going to call any names, but I think some of y'all don't understand the depth of what religious trauma really is. My mother passed away in 2003. She was a God-fearing woman. She lived her entire life in the church. Church was her world. Church was the only life she really had outside of working and taking care of her family. She was a lifetime member of her home church. Like when I say she's one of the founding members, that's probably not a real stretch. The church ended up hiring a young, zealous, charismatic pastor. He had a vision for the church that did not match the vision of this church. Most of the members of the church were elders, and they were very grounded in their faith and their beliefs, and they were not really filling his vision. This pastor made a decision on the date of 9/11 to sit down all of the elder leaders of the church. And needless to say, my mother was in the number. He stripped her of all of her responsibilities, all of her titles, and it destroyed her. It hurt her so bad. Not long after that, my mother got very sick, and she had a series of strokes. The last stroke she had took her life. While all of this was happening, a lot of things was happening at her home church with this pastor. He made the decision to also remove my mother's name from the membership roll. When we were planning my mother's funeral, this pastor denied my family the right to have the funeral at her home church, a church that she had been a member of for at least 40 years. And while my mother lay on her cooling board at the funeral home, me and all of my siblings had to hire an attorney, stand before a judge, and get an injunction to have our mother's funeral at our own home church, because this pastor told our family, because she was not a member of the church and had not given money because she was sick, that we'd have to pay $200,000 to have her funeral there. We had to get an injunction to be able to have my mother's funeral at her home church. Religious trauma for many of us, it's not about church hurt. Many of us have literally been traumatized by the church.
Okay, first thing that I want to do is I want to let you know that this is very personal to me because my mother passed away. And when my mother passed away, it was a very traumatizing experience just because you're dealing with grief. You're dealing with grief. And I'll go ahead and be more transparent here. My mother didn't have any life insurance. You know, we always talked to her about it, but my mother was a little suspicious, felt like somebody might be trying to take her out, but that ended up being a real situation. But thank God for my family. You know, everybody came together as a family. We just took care of it. But that's not the case for everybody. You know, we have all kinds of things that happen. uh, in these situations where there is no money, and then we have to do that GoFundMe, and everybody hates to see. I know I do. It bothers me when I see families have to put out GoFundMe's, but that's the age we live in right now. I've been in areas, I've saw situations been exposed to where there was even an offering had to be taken up at the funeral itself because they still needed to pay for this funeral, and that is another thing as well. But if you've been in church as long as I have, you've seen it all. You've seen it all. Fish fries and all of that stuff. We're just trying to bury somebody, but this is something that happens at all churches. You have weddings, those that christen babies with christen babies, and death. It's gonna be, we bury the elderly. But here's this story, and it's personal to me because my mother was highly involved in the church and different things. But we didn't have this situation. But this is personal to me because when did we start doing the elderly bad? When did we start putting them out, sitting them down, all these kind of things? This is terrible. So let's deal with a few things here, and y'all gonna have to bear with me because even though I watched this a few days ago, I'm still a little lit, if you would. That's what this generation says. I'm still a little lit and bothered by this. But let's deal with two things. Whenever a new pastor comes in, many times it can be a celebratory moment. We all say, "Hey, we got a new pastor." Different things like that. But in order for the new pastor to come in, there had to be an old pastor that left. Now, in this situation, because it was like it was, I'm just going to assume that this pastor passed away. The previous pastor passed away. And in this instance, you have people who come in when an old pastor passes away, they hire somebody new. And I've seen the mistake of the new pastor who comes in and totally disregards people's feelings and their hearts. And even in this level of bereavement, which you can't put a timeline on that, they totally disregard that feeling and that grief that they have for the previous pastor. And they do different things, taking pictures down and all of this. Even those who take over, because sometimes it's the pastor passes away, new pastor comes in, or somebody's raised up in those situations, and they want it to be about them and what they want to do. And it's just an insensitive thing to do, to come in there and just change things up all the way without considering where people are. And I'm just going to go even further. I thank God this did not happen to me, but this is a very trauma filled situation to have to go to court. You stripping rights from the elderly, stripping rights. And I'm going to go even further. I believe the church was probably guilty in it allowing this pastor to do this. But this lady, if this is what she had did all of her life, and all of a sudden that's ripped from her, I wouldn't. I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. I believe the church or this pastor was even had a level of led to this woman dying. If that's what she does, elderly get into their routines, and it's the thing that they do that give them life, and you took some from her, pastor, whoever this pastor is. And I did a little research because she wasn't gonna call names, but because I was bothered, like I still am, I had to do a little research and found out that after this pastor did all of these things, he is not even the pastor there anymore. Done moved on, and that is the thing. When many times when we hire these new pastors, they are good at hiding their lunacy. They are lunatics. They have a level of psychological disorder, and they're good at hiding it. And you usually see it with their leadership style. First, let me say this: leadership is not something that's dressed well. It's not something that has all these. You could have more degrees than a thermometer. If you're psychotic, you're psychotic. If you're demon possessed, you're demon possessed. And real leadership is self-realization. You have to look at somebody, and if they know who they are, they know who they are. And people don't have a problem following somebody who's a real authentic leader because they know who they are. Now, when I say they know who they are, self-realization. Real leaders don't have to look for followers because you know who you are and you carry yourself well enough that people don't mind following you. That's what I'm saying. And so sometimes you get into all these different things, and and this is bad. The church had to go through, and he was petty enough to take them off the roll because she wasn't giving money. And then when did sick people start giving a whole bunch of money? And I understand as a pastor, when somebody gets sick, their money gonna start changing because most of these folk trying to pay for doctor bills. Let's just be real and keep it all the way 100. People trying to pay for bills and all of that. It's what it is. I've never in my life seen this new generation of preacher. That's why I call it psychotic. I don't even believe that he was called to really pastor. I'm just going to go ahead and say that, because when did we start doing the things like this? I know several pastors who don't even have big congregations and different things of that nature, but then they get in there and act like they are pastoring the Potter's house, or TD Jakes Church, or Creflo Dollar's church, where they have $1 million members. You can't do that. You have to pastor where you are. Pastor the people within the demographics of where you are, within the city, the neighborhood, and the community of where you are. And this is something that is bad. I hate to hear this, hate to see this. And it just goes on. The family had to go to court and all of that, and they wouldn't let her have the funeral there, and took a name off the roll and all of that. I mean, this was terrible. I don't know if you feel like I feel, but this is real bad. Took a name off the roll, and then I mean, and went the petty, uh Lord, just being spiteful and petty, and said, well, if you're gonna have the funeral here, we want you to pay $200,000. Wow. This is what you're gonna do. Y'all, this is all the way bad. And I think that they did good by I don't know if they got rid of him or if he left, but if he left, that means another church is dealing with this foolishness. And if another church is dealing with this foolishness, I think there needs to be some letters sent to this new church so they'll know what kind of fool they got. And I said what I said, what kind of clown they have. This is bad. This is bad. We're supposed to love on our elderly. We're supposed to love on everybody. But this situation here, and now let's go to this, because I've been dealing with church hurt. This is a level of hurt as well, because now this whole family, not only did they have to grieve their mother passing away, but they also have this trauma of having to deal with this whole situation, probably put their grief on hold for a moment, which is just going to only extend the grieving process, because mama is gone. But not only is mama gone, but the church that she loved did her wrong. And y'all know how folk get. We've seen plenty of videos where people are online at funerals. I won't say online, but we've seen plenty of videos online of people at funerals. And when they got emotion and anger mixed together, y'all, it's not a good thing. I've been to funerals where I've seen some of the worst situations because grief and anger have mixed. And in that moment, there are several things that can go wrong. This is why these kind of things don't need to happen. But when you have pastors out there who are not spirit led, let me go ahead and say that. Pastors who are not spirit led, one, I don't even know if this guy had a spiritual father. Sometimes you need to be consulted by somebody with greater wisdom to help you to understand what to do and what not to do. And I'm going to go even further. Even though this pastor left, the church itself is left with that stain on it because of what happened, because they allowed it to happen. I'm talking about the deacons, trustees, all these people in position. They're left with this. And so it's a whole lot of thing that I know that we're gonna have to talk about, y'all. What do you do in this situation when it happens like this, y'all? This was bad, and I hate that this all happened, but I want to know what you think about it. Jump down in the comment section and let's talk about this whole situation right here, and give me your honest thoughts, your honest opinions, because we gotta talk about this. Let's go.